You will now be entering Module 1, Chapter 3, EMS Providers and the EMS Officer. Please review this section and complete the assignment by obtaining a minimum score of 80%.
After studying this chapter, you will be able to describe the EMS officer's basic tasks of routine administrative duties related to the work unit, the equipment and the work facility, be able to describe a typical EMS work day beginning with the shift report. You will be able to describe the transition from an EMS provider to an EMS officer with new duties that include supervision, performance, and safety of the EMS crew. In addition, you will be able to discuss the EMS officer's role as supervisor, who is the official representative of the agency EMS chief. You will be able to discuss the EMS officer's role as commander at the scene of an EMS incident and provide strong direct supervision over EMS providers. As a trainer, you must make sure that providers are competent in their skills and must maintain an effective working relationship with your supervisor by keeping them informed on major actions or changes. Integrity is defined as the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. The EMS officer must walk the walk and demonstrate this behavior. Ethical behavior is making decisions based on the agency's core values, mission, and value statement. The EMS station workforce should reflect the community it serves, which requires specific mandated hiring practices to ensure workplace diversity. To maintain a professional work environment, the EMS officer will encourage and enforce acceptable behavior whenever EMS providers are on duty. An EMS officer is often responsible for managing a single resource unit within an EMS agency. Much of what an EMS officer does consists of routine administrative activities related to the single resource, assigned equipment, and physical location. Supervising and managing EMS officers usually report to a higher ranking officer. Agency structure determines to whom the EMS officer will report. An EMS officer is often responsible for managing a single resource unit within an EMS agency. Much of what an EMS officer does consists of routine administrative activities related to the single resource, assigned equipment, and physical location. Supervising and managing EMS officers usually report to a higher ranking officer. Agency structure determines to whom the EMS officer will report. The shift report is provided from each work location to the appropriate supervisor. The report format may be electronic, paper, or verbal. Some agencies use staffing software that provides real-time scheduling that conforms to agency operational requirements. The report provides the on-duty staffing, sick leave, annual leave, and identifies any positions that need to be filled. Additionally, the report notes the location and condition of all apparatus or rolling stock. The shift report provides the appropriate supervisor with any must-know information that will require immediate attention and may include anticipated staffing for the next shift. EMS officers must make prompt notifications. All injury and infectious disease exposure reports must be processed without delay. If a provider is exposed to a possible bloodborne pathogen, it must be reported immediately. The designated infection control officer must be informed immediately so that he or she can get patient information while it can still be easily obtained. The same priority applies to any information your supervisor may need to know while it is current, particularly before someone at a higher level calls to ask about the issue. Decision-making and problem-solving are of equal importance. Your supervisor wants you to run the team and make decisions that are within your scope of responsibility. Do not complain about a problem without proposing a solution. Remember that gripes go up the chain but not down. An EMS officer is responsible for accomplishing the agency's mission through the efforts of the agency personnel. Tasks include checking equipment, sending in a staffing report, cleaning equipment, completing house duties, leading a training exercise or other productive activities such as familiarizing personnel with the response district, allowing for individual study time, and ensuring the building is in good condition to turn over to the next crew. While a volunteer EMS officer may not have as detailed of a list as a career EMS supervisor, the volunteer officer must still ensure the same essential tasks are completed. General station maintenance, training, and apparatus cleaning may occur on the weekend instead of on a weekday duty night. There are 4 major changes that occur during an EMS provider's career. The first change occurs when the EMS provider completes their initial certification and field training or precepting period. The second change takes place when the provider successfully completes a promotional process and starts working as duty crew leader or EMS officer. The third event is when he or she begins working as a chief level officer, and the fourth event is when the EMS provider retires. Promotion from provider to officer is a large step. The EMS officer is responsible for the supervision, performance, and safety of personnel. Your most important task is to ensure everyone goes home at the end of the day. You serve as the agency's representative when responding to calls and as your supervisor's representative to your personnel. The EMS officer's duties are divided into three distinct roles: supervisor, commander, and trainer. The EMS officer will function as a supervisor, who is the official representative of the agency EMS chief. The EMS officer will be the commander at the scene of an EMS incident and provide strong direct supervision over EMS providers. The EMS officer, as a trainer, must make sure that providers are competent in their skills, and the EMS officer must maintain an effective working relationship with his or her supervisor by keeping the supervisor informed and consulting with the supervisor on major actions or changes. In the supervisory role, the EMS officer will function as the official representative of the agency. As part of that role, it's expected the EMS officer will conduct themselves in a manner consistent with the rules and regulations of the agency. The EMS officer may have to issue and enforce unpopular orders. When faced with an unpopular order, the EMS officer should express any concerns with their supervisor in private. Telling personnel that you disagree with an order undermines the officer's authority and supervisory ability. Enforcing unpopular orders is part of the job. When operating at the scene of an emergency incident, the EMS officer is expected to function as a commander and to exercise strong supervision over personnel. In some cases, the officer may be responsible for directing the actions of additional resources or function as the initial incident commander. The ability to bring order to chaos is an art that requires a well-developed skill set. Communicating incident size-up information must be consistent with the organization's requirements and with NIMS. Command presence is the ability of an EMS officer to project an image of being in control of the situation. To be a successful leader, you must convince others to follow by demonstrating the ability to take charge and make the right things happen. You should have a detailed knowledge of the responding agencies, a mastery of local procedure, and the ability to issue clear and direct orders. As an EMS officer, you have the responsibility to make sure the personnel under your command are competent in their skills. You must establish a set of expectations to perform at the highest level possible. As an EMS officer, you have the responsibility to make sure the personnel under your command are competent in their skills. You must establish a set of expectations to perform at the highest level possible. To develop a personal library, you can create a notebook with subject matter tabs or simply create an electronic file with PowerPoint presentations, video clips, and Word documents containing training material. You should also maintain a personal copy of textbooks and references used in EMS training. You can highlight, tab, and write in your copy of the book. Trade journals and peer-reviewed journals such as GEMS or EMS World are also great examples of materials containing current trends in EMS. EMS personnel should have a good detailed knowledge of their jurisdiction. This requires the EMS officer to encourage personnel to walk through high occupancy buildings, pointing out details that providers should be aware of. As an EMS officer, you should strive to create good working relationships with building managers in your response district. Examples include grade schools, college campuses, apartment complexes, and industrial areas. The EMS officer can help personnel become more skilled and knowledgeable by providing opportunities to use their protocols and skills. Present a fact-based situation and require personnel to use a protocol book to formulate a treatment plan. This technique forces personnel to personally identify weaknesses and make decisions. Every EMS officer has a supervisor. Every EMS officer has an obligation to work effectively with a supervisor. 3 activities are necessary to ensure a good working relationship. Keep your supervisor informed, make appropriate decisions at your level of responsibility, consult with your supervisor before making major disciplinary actions or policy changes. EMS officers should not hesitate to make decisions appropriate for their level of responsibility. This means that problems should be addressed and situations resolved where and when they occur. If the decision will have an impact that goes beyond the EMS officer's scope of authority, talk to the appropriate supervisor. Integrity refers to a complex system of inherent attributes that determines a person's moral and ethical actions and reactions, including the quality of being honest. As an EMS officer, you should walk the talk and demonstrate the behaviors that are important. Integrity can be demonstrated by a steadfast adherence to a moral code. The EMS officer demonstrating ethical behavior makes decisions and models behavior consistent with the agency's core values, mission statement, and value statements. Refer to the NAEMT's Code of Ethics for specific examples. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, enforces civil rights in the workplace. Many EMS agencies have made changes to their recruitment, hiring, and promotion practices to comply with the various civil rights laws. Diversity, as applied to EMS agencies, means the workforce should reflect the community it serves. Actionable items are behaviors that require an immediate corrective action by the EMS officer. Failing to act when these situations occur is likely to create a liability and loss for the agency. Examples of actionable items include personnel using derogatory or racist terms about people from other ethnicities, religions, or genders. The EMS officer must act immediately in these situations. Actions may include speaking with the offender immediately, counseling, providing the agency's equal opportunity employment or affirmative action policy, and code of conduct. The EMS officer should also maintain a record of counseling. The standard for evaluating sexual harassment is what a reasonable person in the same or similar circumstances would find intimidating, hostile, or abusive. Sexual harassment is unwanted, uninvited, and unwelcome attention and intimacy in a non-reciprocal relationship. The term hostile work environment can be used to describe a broad range of situations in which personnel are subject to discrimination in the workplace. The EMS officer plays a vital role establishing a work environment that is free from conditions that might lead to such a complaint. Social media and a 24-hour news cycle can transform a minor incident into front-page news in a matter of hours. Personnel who want to initiate a harassment complaint have a choice of 3 methods for doing so. They can start with the federal government, they can start with the local government, or they can start with the EMS agency. If the process starts within the agency, the EMS officer may be the first point of contact. The EMS officer should know the agency's procedure for handling complaints. Consider the station or other agency facility as the business and work location. The EMS officer accomplishes this by taking the following steps. Educate personnel on the workplace rules and regulations that define expected behavior. This information can be found in the agency's mission statement, core values, and/or personnel regulations. Promote the use of on-duty speech. Personnel can think what they want, but while on duty or in uniform, they cannot use certain words or phrases or act in certain behaviors. Be the designated adult. The EMS officer must model appropriate behavior as well as encourage and enforce the same behavior by personnel. An EMS officer should make it practice to walk around the station at various times during the shift to observe what's going on. This practice is used to make sure everything is functioning properly. Having the reputation for knowing what is going on in the station and reacting to inappropriate situations goes a long way towards encouraging appropriate behavior. An EMS officer is responsible for accounting for the people and resources. The shift report should be delivered in a timely manner. The EMS officer must make prompt notifications, as some types of information must be passed up the chain of command quickly. Chiefs typically want officers to run their crew and make the decisions that are within their scope of responsibility. Each EMS agency should have an agency-wide mission that is translated into annual goals. These goals are used to develop annual, quarterly, and monthly objectives for each EMS crew. An EMS officer has a larger sphere of responsibility when supervising a work group than he or she had as a provider. An EMS officer's duties can be divided into 3 distinct roles: supervisor, commander, and trainer. As a supervisor, the EMS officer functions as the official representative of the agency. As a commander, the EMS officer is expected to exercise strong, direct supervision over personnel when operating at the scene of an emergency incident. As a trainer, the EMS officer is responsible for the performance level of the personnel and must establish a set of expectations that personnel will perform at the highest level possible. An EMS officer needs to model the core values of integrity and ethical behavior that, combined with the formal symbols, create an effective EMS officer. Recruitment, hiring, and promotion practices are guided by the EEOC. Be sure to follow procedures when you encounter a complaint. Consider the EMS station or facility as a place of business or work location.